Kilroy back in the shop. It's the next day. I have tungsten. I have test pieces. I have hood. I have gas. We're going to strike an arc. To what degree of success, I don't know. All right, we're suited up. And contrary to what you might think, these gloves are so thin and so comfortable, I can operate my phone screen while wearing them. Pretty darn impressive. I got a piece of clean metal here that I've scribed some lines on. I buffed it down with a flat disc and scribed some lines. I got some tungsten sharp as razors here. Got one in the torch. It's 3/32, 2% lanthanated from USA Weld or HTP America. And I'm going to throw on the hood here. We're going to crank this thing up. And we're just going to roll some beads along here, no filler, and see how it goes. I'm going to use what they call the easy setup. A couple more things that before we get started that happened here. Okay, I hooked the gas up, and I hooked it up, opened the valve, opened the flow. I powered it up, and then I was just going to press the torch switch to set the gas flow, and I did that. And then I walk back around here, and I'm sitting here and I'm messing with the camera, whatever, and all of a sudden I hear a pop. Psh, what's going on? I go over there. So the pre-made hose that goes from the flow regulator to the machine, the hose had popped off the barb fitting. They have these little banded, you've seen these like in cars, little steel band hose clamps where they just crimp the little piece on the side. That didn't do it. So that popped off. So I cut that off. Thankfully I had some little bitty hose clamps. I put a hose clamp back on there, got it turned back on, didn't pop off. I walked my happy ass back around here, sat down, and was messing with the camera, getting ready to go, and all of a sudden I hear pop. Well, the hose had popped off the other end. So I go back around, cut it off again, had another hose clamp, put it back together. So something to think about. You don't want to leave for lunch. I could have got up and walked out of here, gone and walked around the corner for a cup of coffee, and wasted an entire tank of argon, right? So it could be a really expensive mistake. So, but these little band clamps, these little things right here are not to be trusted. At least not the way those were put on. So I fixed that. Anyway, so everything's hooked up. I believe we're good to go. Got the ground clamp on here. This isn't per se a welding table. It's a workbench. It's a door. It's an old solid core door with a piece of 11 gauge steel sheared. Went down to the local steel yard and had a piece of 11 gauge sheared to fit this tabletop. It's an extremely rugged bench, but you know, like I said, not necessarily a welding table per se, but it will work. So let's get going. close-up vision. It's messing me all up. Let's try that again. Not to heat. So, cut this thing off. A couple of other things I figured out. No matter what settings you leave it on, when it comes up, it's going to be in stick. What I used, the settings I used for this are what they refer to as the DC Easy Setup. And that's 90 amps, like a half a second of pre-flow, a second of upslope. It's a 45 amp starting, a half a 1 second upslope to 90, 3 second downslope, I think, 45 amps ending, and like 3 amps post-flow. I think that's the setup for the DC Easy setup, which only applies to TIG. They do not have an easy setup for stick. So I'll move the camera around and show you my first 2 attempts, and try not to laugh too hard, please. So here you go. My first 2 attempts at TIG welding. Well, using a TIG welder. I didn't actually weld anything. I just ran a bead down. I think I was more consistent in my arc height the first time than I was the second time, because you can see I get a little variation in the width of that bead the second time. But anyway, there you go. I guess I got a few more. I got hours and hours and hours of doing this in order to get comfortable with it, but it's a start. It's a learning process. That's all I got to say. It has been enjoyable. I've learned a few things. All of you experienced TIG guys, get ready to laugh. One thing I learned, your tungsten better be clean. And you probably noticed when I did weld a second ago that this side of the piece sparked as it arced, as it grounded to this steel plate. In the picture, ground clamp. Less than, what, about 9-10 inches between the ground clamp and the work. The work's clean metal. The work's sitting on clean metal. 11 gauge plate, roughly 1/8 of an inch. And it's still hunting for ground. Of course, the other thing I learned is if you do nothing but welds on one side of a plate, it'll bow up like a piece of wet oak. So that is also a learning experience. You know, getting an arc started, it's okay. Walking it down and keeping a fairly consistent Bead size, it's not too bad. It helps a lot if I have a line scribed on the metal to give me something to follow. Ending. This is where you get into, you know, people using a foot pedal. I'm not even messing with that. As your piece soaks with heat and your piece gets hotter as you move along, your travel speed has to speed up, or your puddles, you can get huge, you know, you'll push it in front of you. So it's, you know, there's all sorts of stuff to learn. It's just so many pieces of the puzzle. People talk about it all the time, but you really have to kind of try it. It's fun though. But ending the welds, you know, you end up with, okay, how do I, especially as you get towards an edge, how do I back away from this without causing a problem? Welding that right then with 100 amps, 45 amp starting current, 1 second upslope, longer downslope, I think like a 2, it's like, this is all parts of the, what do they call that, DC easy settings, except bump the current up to 100. And it, you know, works fine. You know, I'm sitting here just trying to focus on maintaining an arc length. That's hard enough. And then you're trying to maintain travel speed, and that's hard enough. There ain't no way I'm going to put my foot on a foot pedal right about now. I mean, I'm having a hard enough time doing this. I don't want to have to do this, you know, yet. So anyway, I'm just going to keep messing with it. Overall, my initial impressions here are positive. I mean, the machine and the water cooler came without a scratch on them. I don't know, you know, well packed, no issues. It is kind of wonky that they pack it with 16th consumables, but that's what's in there. Also with these little bitty tiny cups. So, but all in all, I'm pleased. I've got an endless amount to learn here, and I'm going to practice because I got projects to do. I've got a project. I want to use this on the rod bender project, which is ongoing right now. So, you know, we'll keep grinding on forward. Anyway, look for more of this. Be safe in the shop, and I'll be back with you soon.